The first thing you should know is that I never meant to propose to anyone, let alone the sovereign ruler of the most technologically advanced species in the Cauldron Star system. But here I am, trying to explain to a 9-foot-tall crystalline being why my transmission contained the ancient royal courtship patterns of her people. My name is Eli Tanner. 3 weeks ago, I was just a remote signal engineer for Interstellar Nexus Communications. Today, I'm apparently engaged to Queen Zoax era of the Crexery Empire, an Earth's unwitting diplomat to a civilization that could reduce our planet to cosmic dust if I screw this up. I should probably start at the beginning. The day it all went wrong was a Tuesday. I remember because I was wearing my terrible at Tuesdays t-shirt while hunched over my desk at home, trying to debug a corrupted data packet from the Cauldron Relay satellite. Inc. had been having issues with the transmissions for weeks, garbled messages, missing data fragments, the usual problems when you're trying to communicate across several light years. Just isolate the corrupt segments and replace them with standard formatted placeholders. My supervisor had instructed over a morning video call. Use whatever template works, we just need to maintain the connection. So there I was, half asleep at 3 a.m., scrolling through our repository of intergalactic communication protocols. I found an elegant old encoding pattern that perfectly matched the size requirements for the gap in my transmission. According to the metadata, it was part of a Crexery cultural archive we'd received during first contact 15 years ago, but the translation notes were incomplete. All I saw was formal ceremonial sequence, high importance, and figure would make a suitably respectful placeholder. I inserted it, hit transmit, and went to bed satisfied with another problem solved. 3 days later, my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, and food delivery drones don't ring bells, so I peered through the peephole with mild curiosity. What I saw made me stumble backward and trip over my coffee table. My front yard was filled with what could only be described as alien soldiers in iridescent armor. And hovering above them was an enormous ship that somehow managed to cast a shadow over my entire neighborhood, while remaining eerily silent. The doorbell rang again, insistently. With trembling hands, I opened the door to find myself face to chest with the tallest being I had ever seen. She, and somehow I immediately knew it was a she, towered over me, her body composed of what looked like living quartz crystal that shifted between deep purple and midnight blue. Light seemed to move within her translucent form, pulsing in hypnotic patterns. Eli Tanner of Earth, she spoke, her voice resonating like a cello played inside a cathedral. I am Queen Zoax era of the sovereign Crexery Dominion. I have received and accepted your proposal of eternal union. I blinked. Twice. What now? Your signal of intent was received 3 of your Earth days ago. It contained the Royal House of Crexer's ancestral bonding invitation, a ritual declaration reserved exclusively for seeking the hand of royalty. Her crystalline structure brightened. I have come to formalize our union, as is tradition when a suitor of sufficient merit presents themselves. Behind her, one of the crystal beings stepped forward, unfolding what appeared to be a holographic document. Your petition has been formally recognized by the Galactic Council, the being announced. As per Interstellar Treaty Article 327, Section B, Paragraph 12, all culturally significant ceremonial propositions transmitted officially between recognized species shall be honored as legally binding, provided they follow established cultural protocols. The Council acknowledges this union as diplomatically significant and wishes to extend congratulations. My neighbor Derek chose that exact moment to step out to collect his mail. He froze mid-stride, jaw hanging open, his bathrobe flapping in the light breeze. Eli, he called out hesitantly. You expecting company from space? Not exactly, I managed to reply. Queen Zvexera turned her crystalline head toward Derek, who visibly shrank under her gaze. Greetings, neighbor of my betrothed, she said. Your dwelling will not be disturbed during the ceremonial proceedings. Derek nodded vigorously. Yep, cool, totally cool. I'm just gonna go back inside now. He backed away slowly before bolting into his house. I turned back to the Queen, desperately trying to find my voice. There's been a mistake, I finally said. I'm a signal engineer. I was fixing a corrupted transmission. I didn't know what that code meant. I was just using it as a placeholder. The Queen's internal lights pulsed more rapidly. Was that confusion? Anger? Impossible to tell. Hey, placeholder. Her voice had dropped an octave. One of her guards stepped forward menacingly, a crystalline spear materializing in their grasp. Your Majesty, this could be considered an insult to the royal house. My heart plummeted. This was how I would die, impaled on an alien spear on my own doorstep because I'd been too lazy to read translation notes. But then something unexpected happened. Queen Zuexera raised a hand, and her guard immediately stepped back. Explain, she commanded me. So I did. I explained about the corrupted data packets, the placeholder protocol, my complete ignorance of Crexery courtship rituals. I talked so fast I nearly hyperventilated. When I finished, there was a long, terrifying silence. Then, to my astonishment, a sound like wind chimes emerged from the Queen. She was laughing. In 50,000 years of Crexery history, she said, this is unprecedented. You have accidentally performed the most sacred ritual of my people without knowing its meaning. I felt lightheaded with relief. So you understand, this was all just a huge misunderstanding. You can go home, and we can forget this ever happened. Her internal lights dimmed slightly. No. The invitation has been sent through official channels. It has been recognized by the Galactic Council. To retract it now would cause my reign unprecedented humiliation and potentially destabilize the political balance of three-star systems. My mouth went dry. But furthermore, she continued, the ancient laws are clear. Once the bonding invitation is sent and accepted, the ceremonial period must be observed. This requires a minimum 20 Earth Day courtship, during which both parties must demonstrate their compatibility. I struggled to find words. But I have a job, and an apartment, and a life. Queen Zuexera made a gesture, and another crystalline being approached with what looked like a tablet. Your employer has been contacted. They have granted you immediate paid leave, and an apology bonus, I believe it was called. Your government has also been informed of the situation. Of course, an alien fleet appearing over Michigan would certainly attract attention. As if reading my mind, she added, your planetary authorities have requested that we maintain a low profile to avoid causing widespread panic. They have cordoned off this area under the pretense of a chemical spill until more formal diplomatic arrangements can be made. Just then, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out to find 73 missed calls, 142 text messages, and what appeared to be an official communication from the United States Department of Extraterrestrial Affairs, a department I hadn't even known existed until that moment. The message read, Mr. Tanner, please cooperate fully with our Crexery visitors. A liaison team is en route. Do not cause an interstellar incident. National security depends on your discretion. No pressure. I looked up at Queen Zuexera, who had been patiently watching me process this information. So, what happens now? I asked weakly. Now, she replied, we begin the ceremonial cohabitation phase. I shall reside here with a minimal honor guard to learn your ways, while you shall learn mine. This is the path to determining true compatibility. I looked past her at the massive ship hovering over my neighborhood. Define minimal honor guard. Merely 40 of my elite crystal sentinels. The rest shall remain in orbit. 40 giant crystal warriors. In my 3-bedroom suburban home. For 20 days. I took a deep breath. Do you like pizza? The Queen's internal lights pulsed in a pattern I couldn't interpret. I'm unfamiliar with this concept of pizza. Is it a ritual of your people? It was going to be a very long 20 days. The first challenge was logistics. My modest house was not designed to accommodate 9-foot-tall crystalline beings. Queen Zuexera graciously agreed to establish her minimal honor guard in a perimeter around my property rather than inside my home, but she herself would need appropriate quarters. Your dwelling has an upper level? She inquired. I nodded. Yes, but the ceiling height is the same as down here. You'd have to duck. She considered this. I can modify my crystalline structure temporarily for comfort. This will suffice. And so, I found myself clearing out my home office to make space for the queen of the Crexery. I moved my desktop computer into my bedroom and watched as two of her guards brought in what appeared to be a large crystalline platform that hummed with energy. "This is a resonance bed," the queen explained. "Crexery do not sleep as you understand it. We enter resonant harmonic states to replenish our energy." "Will it interfere with the electricity or my Wi-Fi?" I asked. The queen made that wind chime sound again. "Your primitive energy grid will not be affected." I bit my tongue at the word primitive. Being insulted was better than being vaporized. Meanwhile, the government liaison team arrived, 5 serious-looking people in dark suits who set up a command post in Derek's garage, much to his continued bewilderment. They brought with them Dr. Amara Quinn, the nation's foremost xenolinguist and expert on Crexery culture. Dr. Quinn was a small, intense woman with silver-streaked hair and eyes that seemed to catalog everything they saw. She cornered me in my kitchen while Queen Zyxura was inspecting my backyard. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" she hissed. "Sent an interstellar marriage proposal by accident?" I offered weakly. She pinched the bridge of her nose. "The Crexery don't have marriage as we understand it. What you've initiated is a sovereign bonding, a mystical, political, and genetic alliance rolled into one. Their entire society is built around crystalline resonance patterns. That code you sent? It's not just words to them. It's a vibrational signature that resonates with the Queen's own crystalline structure." I felt the blood drain from my face. "So what exactly did I say to her?" Dr. Quinn sighed. "From what we can piece together, you essentially transmitted the equivalent of my soul's frequency. Harmonic perfectly complements your royal resonance, binding our essences across the void. It's considered the most intimate and poetic declaration in their culture." I groaned. No wonder she came in person. "There's more," Dr. Quinn said. "That particular ritualistic pattern hasn't been used in over 3,000 years. It's from their equivalent of Arthurian legend, their golden age of romance and warfare. By using it, you didn't just propose. You basically declared yourself a legendary hero worthy of royalty." I slumped against my refrigerator. "So I accidentally said I'm an epic warrior poet with a soul that vibrates in harmony with hers. More or less." Dr. Quinn's expression softened slightly. "For what it's worth, the fact that she found it charming rather than offensive means you've averted immediate disaster. The Crexery could destroy our planet without breaking a sweat." "Small comfort," I muttered. Our conversation was interrupted by the sound of shattering glass. I rushed into the living room to find Queen Zyxura examining the remains of my coffee table. Apparently, her crystalline body had brushed against it with too much force. "I apologize for damaging your furnishing," she said. "It was surprisingly fragile." "It's fine," I said automatically. "It was just from IKEA." "IKEA?" She tilted her head. "Is this a renowned earth artisan?" And so began my first lesson in explaining human culture to an alien queen. Days passed, and a strange routine developed. Each morning, I would wake to find Queen Zyxura in my living room, often surrounded by holographic displays showing what appeared to be star charts or Crexery text. She was endlessly curious about human customs. She watched me prepare coffee with fascination, asked detailed questions about everything from toothpaste to television, and seemed particularly intrigued by human literature. "Your species creates fictional narratives for entertainment?" she asked, browsing my bookshelf. "Vedo," he replied. "Do the Crexery not have fiction? All our recorded communications serve functional purposes, historical documentation, technical instruction, or formal declarations. The concept of creating false accounts for pleasure is unusual." I pulled down a volume of Shakespeare's plays. "Dear, this is considered some of our greatest literature. The author lived over 400 years ago. She handled the book carefully with her crystalline fingers. And these markings transmit imaginary events to your mind. When you put it that way, it sounds strange. But yes." To my surprise, she became engrossed in a Midsummer Night's Dream, occasionally asking me to explain references or idioms. By evening, she had finished the play and was contemplating it deeply. This Shakespeare understood something profound about miscommunication between different types of beings, she observed, and he employed multiple layers of meaning within a single communication, like our own symbolic language. I nodded. That's one reason he's considered a genius. Her internal lights pulsed in what I was beginning to recognize as a pattern of interest. I wished to consume more of these works, and so our evenings fell into a pattern. Queen's Extra reading Earth literature while I attempted to work remotely despite the government agents monitoring my every move and the crystal warriors patrolling my yard. My supervisor at Inc. called almost daily, torn between apologizing profusely for the coding repository error and probing for information about the Crexery. Are they planning to offer us new communication technology? He asked eagerly. Because if you could put in a good word, I'm trying not to cause an interstellar incident, I reminded him. Not negotiate trade deals. Meanwhile, life within Alien Queen had its challenges. She didn't eat food as humans understood it, instead absorbing energy directly from light. She spent several hours each day in front of my windows, her crystalline body refracting sunlight into dazzling patterns across my walls. The neighbors had mostly evacuated after the chemical spill announcement, but a few remained, including Derek, who had appointed himself my unofficial support system. Dude, how's it going with the space crystal lady? He would ask, bringing over beers that we'd drink in my garage, the only place Queen Zoexera didn't regularly visit. She's reading her way through my entire bookshelf and asking existential questions about human emotions, I told him one evening. Yesterday, she wanted me to explain why Romeo and Juliet's deaths were considered romantic rather than simply poor planning. Derek snorted. What did you tell her? That humans often confuse tragedy and romance. She said that was consistent with our young species' developmental stage. Ouch. Derek took a swig of beer. Is she always so superior? I consider this. Not superior exactly. Just different. She experiences time differently. The Crexery live for thousands of years. Her perspective is bound to be alien. Still, Derek said, must be weird having her in your house. It was weird, but not in the ways I had expected. The strangest part wasn't the cultural differences or even the physical challenges of hosting a being made of living crystal. It was the moments of unexpected connection. Like when I found her watching the sunset with an expression of what seemed like wonder, her crystalline form reflecting the orange and pink hues of the sky. Your star's illumination creates remarkable chromatic effects as it passes through your atmosphere, she observed. We call that a beautiful sunset, I replied. She was silent for a moment. Beauty, an abstract concept based on subjective perception. Yet I find I understand it when witnessing this phenomenon. Or the time she discovered my old guitar in the closet and asked about it. I explained it was a musical instrument and demonstrated a few simple chords. Her reaction was immediate and startling. Her entire form began to resonate in harmony with the notes, creating overtones that filled the room with otherworldly music. Your sound waves create sympathetic vibrations within my structure, she explained, her voice mingling with the lingering tones. It is pleasant. After that, she requested music daily. I introduced her to everything from classical to jazz to rock, watching in fascination as her crystalline body responded differently to each genre, sometimes pulsing with the rhythm, other times creating complex harmonies with the melodies. It was during one of these musical sessions that she asked, "Why have you not found a bonding partner among your own kind, Eli Tanner?" The question caught me off guard. I guess I never met the right person. Explain right person. I struggled to articulate something I'd never fully defined for myself. Someone whose presence makes you feel more complete. Someone who understands you without words. Someone who challenges you to be better, but accepts who you are. She was silent for a long moment, her internal lights shifting slowly through deep blues and purples. The Crexery believe in resonant souls, she finally said. Crystalline structures that naturally amplify each other's inherent frequencies. It is rare and valued above all connections. That sounds a lot like what humans call soulmates, I said, though many consider it just a romantic myth. And what do you believe, Eli Tanner? I looked at this alien being who had turned my life upside down, who had read Shakespeare with the same intensity she studied star charts, who resonated with music in ways no human could. I believe the universe is stranger than we can imagine, I said, and that connection can come in forms we don't expect. Her lights brightened briefly, a wise observation. As the days passed, I found myself less anxious about her presence. We developed a comfortable rhythm. She would ask questions about Earth culture, and I would do my best to explain, often learning about Krexery ways in return. I learned that the Krexery didn't have art as humans understood it, but their architectural structures were designed to capture and refract light in ways that created evolving visual symphonies. I learned that their language had no word for lie, but 17 different terms for resonant truth. I learned that despite their fearsome appearance and advanced technology, they had not engaged in warfare for over 10,000 years, having evolved beyond physical conflict to more sophisticated forms of competition. And occasionally, I caught glimpses of ZYX-Era, the individual, rather than ZYX-Era, the queen. Like when she admitted that the burden of ruling sometimes created disharmonious resonance. Within her, the closest Krexery equivalent to stress or loneliness. You have no counterpart? I asked. No, king or fellow ruler. The sovereign of Krexer stands alone, she replied. It is tradition. Sounds lonely, I said before I could stop myself. Her internal lights dimmed slightly. Loneliness is a human concept. Is it? I challenged gently. Or is it a universal experience with different names? She didn't answer, but later that evening, I found her rereading The Tempest, paying particular attention to Prospero's solitude. On the 12th day of our strange cohabitation, everything changed. A second Krexery ship arrived in Earth's orbit. This one even larger than the Queen's vessel. The government liaisons burst into my house in a panic. Another delegation has arrived. The lead agent informed us. They're requesting immediate audience with the Queen. ZYX-Era's form stiffened, her usual shimmer becoming still and hard. Counselor Vexcalen, she said, and though her crystalline face couldn't form human expressions, I sensed something like dread in her voice. Who is that? I asked. The leader of the ancestral purity faction, she replied. Those who believe the royal house must maintain absolute genetic and resonance purity. Dr. Quinn, who had been working from my dining room for the past week, looked up sharply. The extremist faction? The ones who opposed any contact with non-crystalline species. The same, the Queen confirmed. They will not approve of the current situation. As if on cue, a beam of light shot down from the sky into my front yard, and a new crystalline being materialized. This one was angular and sharp-edged, with a core that glowed harsh red rather than the cooler blues and purples of the Queen and her guard. Your radiance. The newcomer's voice grated like shards of glass scraping together. The High Council requests your immediate return to address this unprecedented situation. ZYX-Era straightened to her full height. Counselor Vexcalen, the situation is being handled according to ancient tradition. The courtship period is not yet complete. Courtship, the red crystal being vibrated with obvious disgust. With a carbon-based temporary life form? This is an abomination against the crystal harmony. I flinched at temporary life form, though it wasn't inaccurate given their millennia-long lifespans compared to human decades. The ancient laws make no specification about the composition of bonding partners, ZYX-Era countered. And the signal was sent through official channels, recognized by the Galactic Council. Vexcalen's harsh light intensified. A signal sent in error by an ignorant primitive. This carbon creature has no understanding of our ways, no appreciation for the sacred resonance patterns of royalty. I've been trying to remain invisible, but something in me snapped at being discussed as if I weren't present. Excuse me, I interjected, stepping forward. This carbon creature can hear you. The crystalline counselor turned to me, and I felt a wave of cold emanating from his form. You dare address me directly, Earth Thing? I dare, I replied, though my knees were practically knocking together. And I have a name, Eli Tanner. While I admit I sent the signal by accident. I've spent the past 12 days learning about Krexri culture and traditions. I may not be made of crystal, but I can appreciate the beauty and complexity of your civilization. Vexcalen made a sound like cracking ice. Empty words. To truly understand the Krexri way requires millennia of study and the proper crystalline resonance. Maybe, I conceded, but in my brief time with Queen Zexura, I've learned that despite our different compositions, there are universal concepts we both value. Harmony, knowledge, connection. Enough! Vexcalen thundered. Your radiance, I invoke the right of challenge. This creature must prove itself worthy of the royal bonding through the ancient trial. The air seemed to vibrate with tension. Queen Zexura's lights pulsed rapidly. The right of challenge has not been invoked for 7,000 years, she said quietly. Desperate times demand ancient remedies, Vexcalen replied. Dr. Quinn had gone pale. She quickly pulled me aside while the two Krexri continued their tense exchange. This is bad, she whispered. The right of challenge is a ritual combat tradition from their warlike past. If you fail, they'll consider it grounds to nullify the engagement and potentially view it as an insult requiring retribution. Combat, I squeaked. I'm supposed to fight a being made of living crystal? She shook her head. Not physical combat. Something worse for you. It's a form of symbolic storytelling. A battle of narrative resonance. Storytelling? That doesn't sound so bad. It's not just any storytelling, she explained urgently. It's about creating a narrative that resonates perfectly with their crystalline frequencies. Think of it as trying to sing an opera in a language you barely know, where hitting the wrong note could shatter glass, or in this case, diplomatic relations. My moment of bravado evaporated. I can't do that. I don't understand their resonance patterns well enough. You must, Dr. Quinn said grimly. The fate of Earth might depend on it. I turned back to find both Krexri looking at me. Vexcalen with what seemed like smug satisfaction, Zexura with an unreadable pulse of inner light. The challenge has been set, the Queen announced formally. In accordance with ancient law, it will take place at the next alignment of your planet with your primary satellite, what you call full moon. That's tomorrow night, I said weakly. Indeed. You have until then to prepare your resonance tale. She turned to Vexcalen. As is tradition, both parties will now withdraw to prepare. No further contact is permitted until the challenge. To my shock, she and her guards began to shimmer with light, preparing to transport back to their ship. Wait, I called out. You're leaving? Just like that. Queen Zexura paused, her form already half translucent. I must honor the ancient ways. But know this, Eli Tanner. Her voice softened to that cello-like tone I'd grown accustomed to. In 12 of your days, you have shown more understanding of true harmony than many who have lived thousands of years. And with that, she vanished in a beam of light, along with Vexcalen and all her guards. I stood in my suddenly empty living room, surrounded by government agents looking at me with expressions ranging from horror to pity. Well, Dr. Quinn said after a long silence, we have work to do. The next 24 hours were the most intense cram session of my life. Dr. Quinn brought in her entire research team, and my house became a war room of xenolinguists, cultural anthropologists, and communication specialists. The resonance tale must follow specific vibrational patterns, one expert explained, showing me charts of wavelengths and frequencies that made my eyes cross. But also needs to convey core Krexri values, another insisted. Harmony, endurance, structural integrity. Dr. Quinn herself was focused on teaching me the basics of Krexri, symbolic language, a system where meaning existed not just in the words but in the rhythmic patterns between them. Think of it like poetry where the spaces between words matter as much as the words themselves, she explained. Each pause creates resonance that carries meaning. By midnight, I was overwhelmed with information, but no closer to having an actual tale to tell. I sat on my back porch, staring up at the nearly full moon, wondering how my life had come to this. Derek found me there, offering a beer which I gratefully accepted. So, he said, sitting beside me, alien storytelling contest tomorrow, huh? I laughed despite myself. That's one way to put it. What are you going to tell them? I shook my head. I have no idea. Everyone's giving me different advice. Use Crexery symbolic structures. Reference Earth literature. Stick to scientific analogies. It's too much. Derek was silent for a moment. You know what I think? What? I think all these experts are overthinking it. From what you've told me, the Queen seemed to connect with you when you were just being yourself. Maybe that's the key. I considered this. But Vex Kalen is different. He already hates humans. Then you're not telling the story for him, Derek said simply. You're telling it for her. Something clicked in my mind. For 12 days, I'd watched how Queen Zwaxera responded to human literature, not with technical analysis, but with genuine emotional engagement. She'd resonated with Shakespeare not because of linguistic complexity, but because of the universal truths beneath the words. Derek, I said slowly, I think you just saved the world. He grinned. Cool. Can I get that in writing for my dating profile? I spent the rest of the night working alone, ignoring the experts and their charts. By dawn, I had my story. It wasn't technically perfect. It didn't follow all the Crexery symbolic structures, but it was true in a way I thought might matter more. The full moon rose, and with it came the Crexery ships, descending silently over my neighborhood once again. This time, a larger delegation materialized in what had once been my front yard, but now resembled an alien encampment. Queen Zisra and Counselor Vex Kalen stood at opposite sides of a crystalline platform that hummed with energy. Between them was a third Crexery I hadn't seen before. Older looking somehow, their crystal structure more complex and layered. The High Arbiter will judge the challenge, Dr. Quinn whispered to me as we approached. A crowd had gathered, not just Crexery and government agents, but also what appeared to be representatives from the Galactic Council. Strange beings of various forms observing with obvious interest. The fate of two worlds rests on your performance. Dr. Quinn reminded me unnecessarily. Remember everything we discussed about resonance patterns? And I'm going to do this my own way, I interrupted gently. Her eyes widened in alarm. But, trust me, before she could protest further, I was called forward onto the platform. The crystalline surface vibrated beneath my feet, sending strange tingles up my legs. The High Arbiter spoke, their voice like a million tiny bells. The challenge of Resonance Tale has begun. Counselor Vex Kalen, as the challenger, you may present first. Vex Kalen stepped forward, his harsh red light intensifying. What followed was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. Not words exactly, but a complex pattern of sounds, lights, and vibrations that seemed to tell a story directly to my nervous system. Though I couldn't understand the details, the emotional resonance was clear: glory, purity, tradition. His tale spoke of crystal perfection unsullied by lesser materials, of harmonies maintained through isolation. When he finished, the Crexery audience vibrated in what I took to be approval. The High Arbiter turned to me. Eli Tanner of Earth, present your resonance tale. I stepped forward, acutely aware of how small and soft I must appear compared to these crystalline beings. I had no advanced technology, no ability to create light patterns or vibrational symphonies. All I had was a human story. I took a deep breath and began to speak. Once, there was a river that flowed through a great valley. The river had flowed for countless ages, its waters clear and strong, its path unchanged for millennia. The river was proud of its constancy and purity. One spring, unusual rains caused a small tributary to form, feeding into the great river. This tributary was different. It twisted and turned, carving a new path through the land, carrying with it different minerals and sediments. The great river was disturbed by this intrusion. Your waters will cloud my purity, it said to the tributary. Your unpredictable course threatens my ancient path. The tributary replied, I bring new life to places that have never known water. I carry nutrients from lands you have never touched. Yes, I am different, but is difference always impurity? The river was not convinced. It tried to overwhelm the tributary, to force its waters to conform to the river's ancient patterns. But something unexpected happened. Where their waters met, beautiful patterns formed, swirls, and eddies unlike anything seen before. Fish were drawn to these patterns. Plants flourished in the mixing of different minerals. A great boulder that had stood in the river's path for eons, one the river had been forced to flow around since the beginning of time, was gradually shifted by the new currents created by their joining. Now the river could flow more directly with greater strength. The river realized that what it had feared as contamination was actually transformation. What it had seen as a threat was actually a gift. For while purity is valuable, it is in the meeting of differences that new patterns emerge, new possibilities open, new harmonies are discovered. And so the great river and the small tributary flowed together through the valley, neither diminished by their joining, but both enriched by the new music their waters made together. I finished speaking and looked up. The Krexery were completely still, their internal lights pulsing slowly. Had I failed? Had my simple Earth metaphor meant nothing to these advanced beings? Then something extraordinary happened. Queen Zuixura's crystalline form began to emit a complex pattern of light and sound, a response to my tale. The pattern spread, resonating from one Krexery to another, creating an expanding symphony of harmonics that made the very air vibrate. Even Vexcalen seemed affected, his harsh red light softening slightly as the resonance passed through him. The High Arbiter stepped forward, their voice ringing clear. The challenge is complete. The resonance has been judged. My heart pounded as I waited for the verdict. Eli Tanner of Earth has demonstrated true understanding of the fundamental harmony, that strength comes not from isolation, but from complementary resonance. His tale carries the ancient truth in modern form. The Arbiter turned to Vexcalen. The challenge is resolved in favor of the Earth being. The bonding may proceed if both parties wish it. Vexcalen's light dimmed in what I took to be disappointment, but he bowed stiffly in acceptance of the judgment. Queen Zuixura approached me, her crystalline form glowing with a soft blue light. Your tale was not told in our traditional forms, she said, yet it resonated more truly than any technical perfection could have achieved. I spoke from the heart. I said simply, heart, your biological pump for circulating fluids. Her lights pulsed in what I now recognized as amusement. Yet another Earth metaphor I have come to appreciate. The High Arbiter and the other Krexery began to withdraw, returning to their ships. Even Vexcalen departed without further protest, though I doubted we'd seen the last of him. Queen Zuixura and I were left relatively alone on the platform, though government agents and Galactic Council representatives hovered nervously nearby. What happens now? I asked. Now, she said, I must return to my responsibilities. The 20-day courtship period has been interrupted by the challenge, but its purpose has been served. You're leaving? I was surprised by the pang of disappointment I felt. My duties cannot be neglected indefinitely, she said, and you have your own life to reclaim. I looked around at my transformed yard, my house that somehow seemed both familiar and strange after everything that had happened. It won't be the same, I admitted. Her crystalline hand reached out, hovering near my face without touching it. If it is any comfort, you have earned a designation among my people that few non-Krexery have ever received, Soul Resonant Friend. I smiled. That sounds like a high honor. The highest. Her internal lights pulsed in complex patterns. And should you ever wish to explore what that might mean more fully, the bonding invitation remains valid. I blinked in surprise. You mean? I mean that accidents sometimes reveal possibilities we might never have discovered through intention. Her voice had that cello-like quality again. Your signal may have been sent in error, but the resonance it created was real. Before I could respond, she stepped back and began to shimmer with transportation energy. Farewell, Eli Tanner of Earth. You have brought new patterns to my ancient existence. And with that, she was gone, beamed back to her ship, which soon rose silently into the sky and disappeared. The government agents immediately swarmed around me, congratulating me on averting disaster, assuring me that my home would be restored, my life would return to normal, classified information agreements would need to be signed. I barely heard them. I was looking at the sky where her ship had vanished, thinking about rivers and tributaries, about Shakespeare and crystal music, about resonant souls. 3 weeks later, life had indeed returned to something resembling normal. The government had repaired my house and upgraded my kitchen, which was a nice touch. The neighbors had returned after the chemical spill was declared resolved, and I was back at work with a substantial promotion. I was now heading a new department at Inc. focused on cultural communication protocol verification, essentially making sure no one else accidentally proposed marriage to alien royalty. Derek occasionally brought beer over and asked for stories about the Space Crystal Lady, which I shared selectively, mindful of my non-disclosure agreements. But something had changed in me. After experiencing the vast possibilities of the universe, after meeting someone so different yet capable of such profound connection, ordinary life seemed somehow both more precious and less complete. I was contemplating this one evening while sorting through my email when a notification appeared for a message with a strange origin code I didn't recognize. Curious, I opened it. The text was simple. I am sending you a book of what you call poetry. Our scholars have been analyzing your literature since my return. I find this form most resonant with our own traditional communications. Perhaps you might tell me what you think of it when next our paths cross. Attached was what appeared to be a collection of Crexery symbolic patterns, translated into human language. The first ever anthology of alien poetry created specifically for human understanding. I smiled as I began to read, the words seeming to create their own music in my mind. There's an old saying that one accidental signal can change a life. I never expected it would change mine by connecting me to a crystalline queen from across the stars. A connection that, despite all logic and physical differences, somehow felt like coming home. But then again, the universe has always been stranger than we can imagine, and connections come in forms we don't expect.